Okay, welcome folks. My name is Orin Martin. I work up at the UCSC Farm and Garden, and I have for 43 plus years. And this afternoon, this evening, we're talking fall veg crops. But first, I'd like to read a little quote relevant to the times we find ourselves in. It's from US historian Howard Zinn. And find ourselves in a pandemic, eh? No, actually a double pandemic. Yeah, the health pandemic, COVID-19, but also racism is a pandemic. So maybe Howard whispers in our ear something to the effect. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending the spinning top of the world in a different direction. And if we do act in however a small way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live in defiance of all that is bad around us is itself a marvelous victory. So let's take a small and positive step forward and talk about things regarding gardening. I'm going to read again. I won't read the whole time, although I could. From something I'd written previously, three paragraphs here. Moving towards the idea of plan now and plant ahead for an abundant fall winter garden. It is amazing, inevitable, and of course a bit sad to see how first. Sun up this morning, 6:18. Sundown this evening, 8:09. 2 minutes shorter the next day and the next and the next. You can tell where this is going. It is amazing, inevitable, and of course a bit sad to see how rapidly summer slips away. On August 1, we experienced 14 hours of daylight. On September 21, we see 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. Where does the time go? Who knows where the time goes? Moving toward fall, despite warm daytime temperatures, the sun seems to slink lower on the horizon. The shadows grow longer and the afternoons fly by in the blink of an eye. The nights grow chilly, sweater weather. There goes summer, slip sliding away, as Paul Simon once intoned. In fall and winter, there are fewer hours of direct sunlight. The days are appreciably shorter, and that light is at a lesser intensity owing to the tilt of the Earth as we spin madly through the solar system. Also, cooler temperatures slow down the rate of plant growth. Thus, the term fall-winter garden refers to the time of harvest, not the time of initiation. As unlikely as it seems, late July to mid-late September is time to establish a firm foundation for that fall-winter garden. There's some great criticality in getting your crops sized up and well established prior to the autumnal equinox. Then the plants will continue to grow, albeit slowly, and fruit, head up, mature well into winter. Successful direct sowings or transplants put out at 2 to 3 week intervals should provision for the kitchen larder well into the holiday season and beyond. So that's the aggregate. Let me say a few things about fall crops. One is that your root crops and your leaf crops and your heading brassicas, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, etc., will be somewhat to appreciably sweeter as fall-winter crops. This is even more pronounced in climates that have real seasons, unlike us, i.e. winter, cold. And so what happens with plants in their physiology is as the nights grow colder, the plants in an anthropomorphic sense death. And so they develop and produce sugars. Sugar lowers the freezing point. So you could say it's a built-in anti-freeze or life insurance policy. And what's the dividend for us? Yeah, even Brussels sprouts taste a little sweet. All the root crops and the leaf crops too. So, and some people I noticed in the pre-submitted questions were, how should I put it, moaning about the fact that they live proximal to the ocean. Hey, that's prime real estate. And yes, there are problems in the salt spray zone along West Cliff, et cetera, in the summer with persistent fog. And haven't we had persistent fog since the 1st of July? And the answer is yeah, we have. But in the fall, well, this climate, this marvelous, mild, cool Mediterranean climate, when I say cool, I don't mean like hip, chic, trending. No, I mean cool, like not like Morocco, but cool, temperature-wise. Features, the summer's a little out of sync with the rest of the nation. Our true summer is August 1.5 to October 1.5. Warmest air, soil, and water temperatures, for those of you who like to go swimming in the ocean, of the year. So then as we move into fall, so I guess my point here is you can extend your summer crops well into fall, but you need to start now if you want to have a well-established fall garden that, you know, realistically can hold you into December, January. After that, I don't know if I can say this in public company, but I'm going to say it. Most of your crops after January are either cropped out or trapped out, and that's just the way it goes. The weather gets them after a while, or hopefully you get them and consume them. So regarding fall crops, direct seeding and transplanting. My recommendation, direct seed root crops. You have to, they're tap rooted, they don't transplant. And anything that's quick, like quick leafy things, arugula, spinach, cutting lettuces, salad mix, and the like. Everything else, I would recommend transplanting. Transplants are great. They give you set out a bigger plant. It's got a jump start on the weeds. It's easier to care for than, let's take an onion or a leek. Maybe 8, 10, 12 weeks from seed to a transplantable seedling. That's a whole lot of fussing and mussing and tending in the ground for a little plant. And much could go wrong. But if you wait until they're maybe, you know, pinky size and you set them out, that plant can deal with the vagaries of the weather, predators, what have you, and grow on like that. But again, a big advantage of transplants is a head start on the weeds. Hey, let's talk weeding for a while. Not that you're trying to cultivate weeds, but you will have them. Every time you disturb the soil and you introduce air to it, that's good in one sense for root growth, and you expose the soil to sunlight, you stimulate the weed seed bank, which is ginormous. And usually about 10, 14 days after you work the soil, you'll get an emergence of weeds. There's a bunch of different ways to deal with weeds as organic growers. They're all mechanical. So you can work your soil, water your soil, let it sit. It's called a stale bed for 10, 14 days. Just when you get a flush of weeds, move in with a hoe. Let me say a few things about hoes, and particularly two marvelous hoes, one even superior to the other. One is called the collinear hose, developed by Elliot Coleman. Johnny's Seeds sells it. Peaceful Valley Farm Supply has it, and as always, I suspect Mountain Seed and Feed up in Ben Lomond have it. They have everything just about. It's just a small blade that comes in a 4 and a 16th width, a very thin steel blade, and very sharp, and you should keep it that way. And it's a draw hoe or a pull hoe. No more of the old chopping hoes where you have to bend over. This is a draw hoe. You hold it with your thumbs up, you know, as if you were ballroom. Oh, nobody does that ballroom dancing stuff anymore. Anyhow, thumbs up, back straight, and you pull it through the soil, just skimming the top of the soil. And it's marvelous at getting weeds in the preemptive stage, what's called the white thread stage. They have maybe not emerged or just emerged, and you just knock them down. The next step up, when the weeds are a little more established, is another great tool called the hula hoe or the reciprocating hoe. And it's just a stirrup that goes back and forth, back and forth. It's a little rougher on the soil, but they are both excellent tools. Regarding setting your rows, make your rows a couple inches wider than your hoe. Both that collinear hoe and the hula hoe come in 4 and 6 inch lengths, so you can have 6 inches or 8 inches variously between your rows. Okay, weeds, inevitable. Let's talk root crops first. Let's talk carrots. Carrots, well, there are umpteen different types and varieties. My strong recommendation is one, maybe two types. And that would be most of the carrots we have in modern day times here were bred in France, so they have French names. So the one class is the Nantes type, Nantes, a region in France. The other is the Chantenay. The Nantes are kind of like Groucho Marx's cigar, about 6-8 inches long, blunt tipped. They don't taste like a cigar. And they are, I think, they bring all that you want in a carrot. What are the requisite things you want in a fresh carrot? Crunch, sugar, and juice. They've got it. And in our mild climate, you could probably grow any type of carrot in any type in summer or winter. But there are a couple of carrot varieties that are specially geared for winter, and they hold well. One is called Nantes, one is called Bolero, and one is called Napoli, and they're both from Johnny's. And Territorial Seed, another excellent seed company, has appropriate cool weather thing, Eskimo, and one called Giant of Columnar, Colmar. And these are good winter carrots for you. Let's talk about seeding your root crops. People tend to sow ridiculously thick. And then there's a psychological barrier to thinning. And even if you're careful, it's injurious. So what's the width or the shoulders of the crop? A radish, about 1 inch or so. 2 seeds to the inch. Seed it that thin if you have to. Carrots, 2 or 3 seeds to the inch. Beets, 3-4 seeds every 2-3 inches like that. But seed at a reasonable rate. One thing that can help you out, particularly with carrots, is they now have pelletized carrot seed. Increases the size dramatically and makes it round and easy to handle like that. A little more pricey, but I think well worth it with carrots to get a little more precise, even though you're just hand seeding like that. Carrots, so now over the next 3 weeks, be about 50, 60 days maturation. Next month, there'll be 60 to 70 days to maturation. But you need to get them in the ground up and growing, I'd say, well established before the middle of October. Okay. Beets, and the beet goes on. I'm old school. Give me a good red beet. It's got to be a red ace. Drop the mic. Okay, there are other beets, and if you must, they're pretty ones like Chioggia, the candy striped beet, and the beautiful golden beet. And there are white beets. Avalanche is an excellent variety. I tend to find them to be kind of all hat, no cattle, good looking, but they don't have that earthy taste that you want from a beet. That is, if you actually like beets. Beets to me are a little bit like cilantro in the sense of how people react to them. Some people adore them, can't get enough. Some people can't be in the same room. But beets offer you the double dividend of the root and leafy greens. If you want to grow a good leaf beet, grow bull's blood, but don't grow it as a beet. It's not very good tasting, but it's a great salad mixed beet. But any beet green will be good. You might notice a salty taste when you steam up your beans, your beet greens. Some folks like this, some folks not. But it has to do with the evolution of the beet. And that is they come from the Mediterranean rims, coastal estuaries, bogs, river mouths, where there's brackish water, a mix of salt and fresh water. So they developed a taproot to go down to mine fresh water, and then they have essentially a salt pump. Salt really messes up the metabolism of plants. So they take the salt and they dump it in the vacuole in the center of the leaf. It's just basically a big hole, and doesn't interfere with vascular function of the leaf. And so when you steam them, eat them, you get a little salty taste. You like, you don't like, that's the way it goes. Radishes. But most books say like 22 to 28 days, or the catalogs too, the maturation. I don't know where that radish comes from, but it's about 30 plus days, maybe 32 days. I don't think there's a bad variety of radish. And it's kind of your choice. Round ones, red ones, white ones. There's a beautiful amethyst one, pink ones, as you wish, bicolors. The little oblong French breakfast radishes are great too. But winter offers an opportunity with radishes that I don't think people are aware of and thus don't take advantage of, and that's winter radishes. And they're often associated, called Spanish radishes or German radishes or Chinese radishes. And let's take the Euro types. They're big, maybe almost as big as a beet, maybe bigger. And they're black and rough skinned exterior and a pure white interior. They're a little spicy, but not hot and pithy, but spicy like that. And they have names that kind of come with the culture. There's an Italian one, Nero Tondo, which means round black, and then Runder Schwarzer, which means round black in German. And they go well. I've got Bavarian in-laws, and here's the deal. Here's what they do. They grow those radishes, or they buy them. They slice them like paper thin, put them in a bowl of salt here, Steinlager, a Pilsner there. Take the fork, get a radish slice, dunk it in the salt, plunk it in the mouth, follow it with a swig of beer. Yeah, pints and radishes goes good. But check them out. Another great winter radish is the red meat or the watermelon radish, just fantastically colored. Green, it's kind of a light chartreuse green on the outside and a red meaty interior. And they're surprisingly sweet. So good luck with radishes. Parsnips, parsnips and celeriac. Let's talk about two appreciated, unsung winter root type crops. Again, there aren't very many varieties of each, and they're all good. Parsnips, they take a long time, 100, 120 days plus. They need a deep open soil, and I mean, they can go down 12, 15 inches. And in most garden situations, it's hard to get enough of a deep root run unless you have a very sandy soil. You get those really nice, full, long parsnips. One solution is practical on a small home scale. Get a PhD, post-hole digger. Dig out a hole like this. You can probably get 4 or 5 plants in each PhD hole, and on you go down the row like that. Take the soil out, improve it, maybe like 30% compost, put it back in. You can even put a little potting mix in there, but a little bit of compost, a little bit of good soil, and it'll just make it easier for that root to elongate. Celeriac or celery root is the gnarliest looking thing you've seen. Difficult to peel. It also takes a long time, like 90, 100, 120 days from transplants. And so you start July, August, and you'll have them by Thanksgiving, Christmas. A couple, 3 years ago, my daughter Caroline brought to the Thanksgiving potluck celeriac au gratin. Gone in a New York minute. It is out of this world. Another way to deal with it, to enjoy celeriac, is celeriac, parsnips, and potatoes can be steamed and mashed together, and they give you an amazing taste and texture like that. Turnips. Personally, I'm not a big fan. However, there are some that are a cut above. And these are small 2-inch globes, white. A Japanese one, Hakurei, Hakerei, and another one from Johnny's, and another one from Renee Shepard's Mikado. And they're just a little tart, a little sweet, and really nice. You can shave them into a salad, or you can eat them raw, crunch, and you can steam them and saute them. They're great. Okay, let's move to the heading brassicas here. To me, the time to grow brassicas is late summer into the fall. As the spring into early summer crop, it's not that you can't pull them off, but they're more problematic. The tendency with back and forth weather in the spring, erratic weather, and our weather here in Santa Cruz is nothing but erratic, is they tend to grow a little, button up, as the term is, and just produce a small premature head. And this is because they are truly biennials. A biennial is a plant that grows 1 year, pauses at the end of the growing season, overwinters, and grows a little in the spring and then flowers. So when the weather's warm in the spring, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, etc., they grow. And the weather gets cold, they stop. And the weather gets warm, they think they've gone from winter to spring, and they bolt. But going as the days shorten from midsummer to fall, you get really big vegetative plants. And as with so many things like garlic and onions, as an example, the bigger the broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower plant, the bigger the resultant head, like that. In terms of ease or difficulty, it goes from easiest to most difficult with kale, piece of cake, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. Cauliflower, celery, and Brussels sprouts kind of give you bragging rights if you can pull them off in the home garden. You're done good. You can do everything right with cauliflower, and if you look at it cross-eyed, it'll just not turn out like that. So as far as cabbages go, I like small cabbages, and I like succulent cabbages. So there are some pointy-headed types. One excellent one from Johnny's called Caraflex. And then Renee's Seeds, another excellent seed company, has one called Pointy-Headed Sweetheart. Now, isn't that a nice epithet? Renee's also has a round, small one, Pixie, and there are others, but small, quick maturing ones would be more succulent. In our house, we take carrots, we take these succulent sweet cabbages, and we take Napa Chinese cabbage, which also can be grown in the fall, and we run them through the Cuisinart, add the ad hoc Asian dressing that we make up, and then plate it up, and put some walnuts on top, some sliced scallions, and you've got a slaw that can't be beat. Another great heading brassica would be Romanesco, which is also called fractal broccoli. And it's kind of this ornate, conical, chartreuse green head. And you want to get a conversation going, invite a bunch of mathematicians over, put it in the center of the table in a bowl, the head of Romanesco, and stand back and listen to them talk about fractals. It's a hoot. Okay, other crops here, and then we'll open it up here. Spinach. Spinach is, by all rights, a spring and fall crop, difficult in the summer because day lengths longer than 14 hours and temperatures warmer than 75 degrees cause it to bolt. So they don't hold well. But as we go into the fall, they will do well for you. And there are two basic types of spinach. The smooth leaf types, which I think are better for broadcast sowing as baby spinaches for salads. And a great winter variety is one called Gazelle. And then there are the Savoy type or the crinkly leaf types. And again, I find myself mired in the past, often the 1800s. I like an old one, actually from the early 1900s, called Bloomsdale Longstanding. It's dark, it's green, it's tall. So the smooth leaf types tend to be flat to the ground and they get mud splatter in them, so you got to do a lot of washing. The upright Savoy or crinkle leaf types are just more protected by their upright nature. They're thicker leaves, they're darker green, they're more nutritious and tastier too, in my opinion. Bloomsdale Longstanding is good, and going way back to France in the mid-late 1800s, two varieties, and this is not a fishtail. They have 10, 12-inch long leaves that are melt in your mouth succulent. Two varieties, again, you're going to have to pardon my French. Géant d'hiver, giant of winter, and Monstro de Virofly. Monstro meaning like really big, and Virofly is a region. And I know Baker Creek Seed carries one of them. They might be a little hard to source, but Géant d'hiver and Monstro de Virofly, check them out. Pause here for a sec and talk about some sources of seeds and seedlings. The local nurseries, the nursery that I think again calls itself San Lorenzo on River Street, and the wonderful folks up on the north end of Mission, the Garden Company, stock really high quality organic seedlings. Now, I was down to the San Lorenzo last week and I went into the seed room. There wasn't a seed on the rack. So this pandemic thing has got people growing, which is good. So seeds may be a little hard to source. The seedlings are selling out at a rapid pace. What you ought to do is call down and see when they get a new shipment in. But they both carry seedlings from Upstarts, which is certified organic six-pack producer. And you want to shop smart. When you're looking at the seedlings, when no one's looking, pop one out of the cell and look at the roots. The roots need to be knit enough so that they hold the soil together when you transplant, so you don't have transplant shock. And yet they need to be white, lively, and vital. Brown roots are not so good. So you can take a look and you can either accept or reject as you wish, but find out when they get their stuff in. Online seed companies. More and more as time goes on, I probably do business with 30 or 40 different seed companies. I regard Johnny's Seeds in Maine as a one-stop shop place. They're just fantastic, flowers and vegetables. And what they do is they carry small packs. They call it a mini pack, which might have 20, 25 seeds in it, and different gradations all the way up to ounces and pounds for a farmer. Their prices are good. And I still use the telephone. I like to call them up and talk to them. And so you get a slice of Maine. And so I talk weather, how the Red Sox doing, this and that. But they're an excellent seed company. Renee's Seeds, started by the inestimable Renee Shepard, a longtime friend of the Farm and Garden, and just an amazing individual in terms of a horticulturalist, a seeds person, and the most generous person you ever knew in terms of donating pallets and pallets of seeds to nonprofit school gardens, colleges, you name it. If you have an entity like that, get hold of them and they will donate lots of seeds. She has nothing but the best varieties, and the seed packets feature a watercolor drawings. The descriptions in the catalog are both a little lyrical and very accurate. So other seed companies, Territorial Seeds up in Oregon, what I like about them is they feature things for cool season areas. We are a cool season area. And High Mowing Seeds back in Vermont is all organic. Seed Savers Exchange in eastern Iowa is all about preserving heirlooms, both seeds and livestock as well. Seeds Change down in New Mexico is also good in that regard and all organic. So there's some things. Let's do a little more with a few other crops. It's a good time of year to establish peas. There are snow, snap, and pod peas. Snow peas, de rigueur for Asian cooking. Snap peas, they eat the whole thing, pea. And pod peas, a lot of shelling for a few peas, but and again, while there's a plethora of varieties, I recommend Oregon Giant as the snow pea of choice. Sugar Snap. Now, I actually like the old original Sugar Snap, which is so tall you need an orchard ladder to pick it. It's 8 or 10 feet tall, not practical. But probably the plumpest and the best tasting, but not practical. But they've improved the Sugar Snap. They have a Sugar Snap Improved, very catchy name. It's a tall bush, about 3-4 feet, and almost as tasty as the original Sugar Snap. And with the pod pea, give me a Maxigold. It's the best. Forget about the rest. Lettuces. This, again, like spinach time of year, where lettuce holds well and becomes pleasant and sweet. Leaf lettuces are the easiest to grow. They're the most heat and cold tolerant, the quickest mature. At 4 to 6 inch spacing, you can probably get an edible head in 20, 30 days. If you put them at 8, 10 inches apart, you'll have a nice whomping big head in 40 days plus. I'm fond of 3 particular varieties. They're all oak leaf types, so pretty leaves. One is called Panisse, and it's kind of a lime chartreuse green, but don't let that dissuade you. It just melts in your mouth. And 2 other French varieties, Rouxai, Rouxaii, and Oscard, which are red leaf types like that. Any old butter lettuce is good with me. Silky and buttery, and it's all kind of good. I am unfortunately stuck in the rut of being addicted to little gem type mini romaine heads. The actual variety that named the class Little Gem is hard to get, but Johnny's now has it, and probably the best of them in terms of taste. Bambi is a little bigger, a little more impressive looking, and almost as good tasting. And then it's hard to get a good red Little Gem type, but Segolane, which really they should lose that name, it's really not a good handle. Segolane and Roseane are pretty good red Little Gems. Okay, one more, onions. Onions can be set out from transplants anytime September, October into November, and then January and February. When you look at onion varieties, make sure you find out, is it a short day, intermediate day, or long day type? Onions are classified by when they bulb up in the spring. Short day types are more for the south, but we can grow them here if you establish them in the fall. They start to bulb up at 12 to 13 hours of day length, basically March into April. They don't jump up and be a bulb all at once and then come mature in June, July. But the best, and long day onions don't bulb up to about 15 hours a day length. We only get 14 hours and 48 hours a day length here. So you're just gonna get a fat scallion if you grow the long day types. But the intermediate day types are the best suited for our latitude here. Most good seed companies will indicate in their catalogs, is it a short, long, or intermediate day types? You want mostly intermediate day types. Johnny's takes it, ratchets up the specificity a little more. They put the latitudes, 36 to 38 degrees. Oh, hey, that's us. We're 37 degrees north of the equator like that. But with intermediate day types, my recommendations are, unfortunately, having trialed many, only a few. You want a good yellow onion? Expression. You want a good yellow onion that ranks according to the USDA between jumbo and colosso? Yes, there's something bigger than jumbo. It's colosso. Zoe, it's just amazing like that. About the best red I can find out there is a red intermediate day variety of onion called Cabernet. And then Bianca di Maggio, white of May in Italian, is a Sicilian Cipollini type. And while it may mature in May, in Sicily, it's more like late June, July here. Really excellent. And there's no reason, folks, you should pay $3, $4, $5 a pound for a Cipollini onion in the market. Grow your own. And it makes no sense that they should be priced so high. They're no more difficult to grow than a regular onion. Another great one is there are a bunch of different Italian torpedo types. Elongate like this, have them, baste them, put them on the Barbie. Life is good out here in Santa Cruz. I'm gonna stop now. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm gonna talk about leeks. Kale and leeks are probably the two most cold hardy of all vegetables. That may not be a huge concern here, say, compared to Vermont, but they just, I'm gonna say leeks reach their peak in November through March. They're richer, they're sweeter. It's one of the few vegetables that actually gets better as us in. And costs a little more, but it grows really fast for a leek, which is to say they don't grow very fast. They're 100, 120 days from transplant to maturation. But you can set leeks out now through October, and you will have a pretty good supply until March, and then they tend to bolt. But if you start more in January and put them out in March, you'll have a little gap in April and May, but then you'll be back with leeks in the spring. I'm going to stop. Oh, no, I lied, of course. Don't forget about flowers. Fall flowers, basically rounding up the usual suspects from spring. Let me just rattle off some here. Maybe, Vanessa, I can send this to you and you can send it out to people in an email or something, because I'm just going to whip through alphabetically mostly. Agrostemma, or corncockle, cutest thing you ever saw. Amimagis or Daucus is basically a flowering carrot, really beautiful white umbel like that. Calendula, Cerinthe, Dianthus, which is the genus for both carnations and sweet williams, and we've taken carnations back from the florists and Safeways. They're now these big, huge monstrosities, often dyed. They're scentless. Originally, back in the day, like 1600s, carnation relatives were grown in Europe, and the sepals and petals were crushed to make a clove-like substance. So their nickname is Clove Spice Pinks, and indeed they have that sense. But Johnny's has some really nice carnations. Like I said, breeders have brought them back. They're very scented and reasonable size. Another member of the Dianthus family are Sweet Williams. Canterbury Bells, a nice biennial, and Digitalis or Foxglove are good to start now. Nigella or Love in a Mist is great. Larkspurs, Matricaria, which is basically fever fuel. I like the simple single white. And Scabiosa, with the nickname of pincushion flower, is great. September and October are the time to establish sweet peas for late winter, early spring. January, February sowing will continue your bloom until it gets warm in May or so. Okay, now I'll stop. Why don't we, well, let's take a few questions here. I have some questions that were pre-submitted, but let's see what the Vox Populi, let's see what the audience has to say here. I can fill in with some of these questions that were pre-submitted if there's a lull.
We've been hanging on by the skin of our teeth here, so there haven't been many questions submitted to the group chat. Hi, I'm Claire. I'm the assistant manager at the Chadwick Garden. So if folks have questions to submit, please do that in the chat and I can field those. Okay. One thing, Orin, we lost you a bit around leeks. So if you could just, if you named variety.
Oh, hard, shoot.
Oh, shoot, good.
I was waxing poetic. Leek varieties, there are many I recommend. The hybrid Megaton, it's fast for a leek, big, juicy, costs a little more, but yeah, it's probably worth it. And an old school one called King Richard. They're two excellent varieties. Like
Great.
That.
So
I could fill in with some of the questions that were pre-submitted.
We've got a few, and I think one maybe one you already got, or like is related to one you've got. So we've got what to do about leaf miners in beets, and when do you put garlic in?
Let's see. Let's take the garlic question first. It's easier to solve. Garlic. I have given many workshops on garlic over the years. But I was once given one on the chalet porch, and there's this woman there with her mom. She was 60. Her mom was in her 80s, from Sicily. And every once in a while, mom would lean over and in Italian, and daughter would nod. And after a while, I'd say, "Well, what's grandma saying?" And one thing she said about when to start garlic in Sicily, the dark of the moon in November. And you know, it's about the same here. You could do it in any phase of the moon you like, I suppose. But you can start as early as late September or October. You certainly want to get garlic in the ground by November. One of the questions that was pre-submitted was a tale of woe and intrigue, saying, I used to be able to grow good garlic and now not. What's up with that? And it's called garlic rust. It's a virulent fungus, aptly named. You see red pustules all over the leaves. It disrupts the function of the leaf. The plant collapses, and you don't get a crop. It was gone away, and then in the El Nino of 1989, it came back into California, reared its virulent head, and has been more rather than less, but intermittently, a problem. In fact, most of the garlic growers in the Central Valley now grow onions. And the reason is because even with fungicides, you can't allay the rust. So what's a coastal organic garlic grower to do? Be brave. There are no resistant varieties. We can talk varieties in a minute here, or types. Establish a good, strong, early plant. Maybe plant a little early, like September, October. Get the plant, usually you get hit with garlic rust in mid-late cycle. It's usually those spring rains and that humid, sticky weather we get in Feb into March into April. And if you can get the plant established enough so it's bulbing, and even if you get hit with rust, you'll probably get a good crop. Do not save your own seed, because even if the garlic looks clean, it's infested. As far as garlic types, there are soft necks and stiff necks. Soft necks, I've grown 120 different varieties over the years, and now things have become incredibly reductive with rust. I recommend a few softneck types. California early, California late, and purple Italian. Another one called Susanville, which is basically an offshoot of the California types. And they're okay. They're big, large, and lumpy. They're your supermarket type garlic, not the most exquisitely tasting ones, but they're more surefire these days in the times of rust. The first question was about leaf miners on ketopods in general, beets, spinach, chard, etc. Geez, I don't know. Hey, Diane, you got any remedies? An answer came there, none.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. I think she's unmuted.
Well, no.
Okay, you have stumped a couple of chumps here. Diane Nichols is our recently retired, fantastic human being and apprentice coordinator. Me, I'm Orin Martin still.
I can say, Orin, what we were doing in the farm garden a few times, and I'm going to try it here because my neighbor has a bunch of leaf miner. I don't have any yet, but I'll get it. But anyway, we were putting out the yellow sticky traps with tanglefoot on it to try to attract the leaf miners. But yeah, that's the best I can do.
Yeah, it's probably grin and bear it. Now, it also seems to be more of a problem spring than summer, but that's not 100% true. If you can usher the plant through, if the damage isn't too bad, you'll get a beet. Now, you probably don't want to eat the spinach that results from that or the chard, but best I can do. What's next, Claire?
Any advice on growing scallions? Mine never seem to mature to the sizes I see in markets.
Oh, really? My complaint is they're too darn small in the markets. But I was once flying on an airplane to Hawaii, and there was a film on that I didn't pay to get the audio, but it was about Japanese scallion or bunching onion growers, and they take it to a fine art. Now, they do this with excessive amounts of nitrogen, and I don't recommend that. And they actually have such long foliage, they comb them, and they pack them in beautiful wooden boxes. So, but nitrogen is the key. Onions, alliums in general, the genus allium, onions, garlic, leeks, scallions, and the like, shallots, are actually adapted leaves. So what spurs leaf growth is nitrogen. So scallions will respond to nitrogen. So if you're having trouble getting size, it could just be a matter of being patient. It could take as long as 70 to 90 days for a scallion to fully size up. But there's one variety from Johnny's called Nachaban, Nacheban, which is big and plump. I recommend it. There's another one called Negri, Negri, and similar, maybe even bigger like that. But perhaps try a little pre-plant fertilizer. I personally rarely use fertilizer with veg and flower crops. Now, fruit trees and roses to get them established, yes. But a little bit of an organic fertilizer just laced into the soil along the road, turn it in. Alliums are very shallow rooted, so just scratch it in off the surface. Might give you a boost and help you get a bigger scallion. There are now so many certified organic fertilizers on the market. When I go to the garden center, I get option paralysis. But some good ones, one good one is Sustain, S-U-S-T-A-N-E, it's a brand name. It's basically pelletized composted chicken and turkey litter, and it comes in two formulations, a 4% nitrogen and an 8% nitrogen. Both are good. Dr. Earth, Gardner and Bloom are both excellent products, and their vegetable fertilizers are good. And one of the good things I like about those two brands, Gardner and Bloom and Dr. Earth, is they're also laced with mycorrhizal fungi. And so these are kind of like, some of you may be old enough to remember, hamburger helper. They're extenders. They are mycorrhizal fungi take up residence in association with plant roots, almost all veg and flower crops except for brassicas, and they extend out beyond whatever the reach of the root system is. And with the reach of the root system with the scallion, it's about like that. So they extend their root area and they forage for water and nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus. So this Gardner and Bloom or Dr. Earth might be the ticket for you for your scallion fertilizer.
And then we've got a few questions about growing potatoes, particularly at this time of year?
About time to harvest. You can do it. In fact, I once had a student, actually I had about 1,500, but he was an intern, and he went on to grad school and got a teaching degree at Chico State. And when he was here, he did a senior internship and he did it on potatoes. And then as a side gig, he became a science teacher, junior high school science teacher. But as a side gig, he grew potatoes up in Chico. And it's too damn hot in the spring and summer to do that. They don't like hot temperatures. But he would get potatoes in January, February when everybody got their orders, put them in the cooler, take them out and do successive plantings in July, August, even into September. And at that time of the year, which is this time of the year, they go through their cycle, the vegetative cycle, much quicker than they do in the spring. It might, where an early potato might take 90 to 100 days to mature in the spring. From a July, August planting, it might take as little as 60 to 70 days. Now they're smaller, but small potatoes are trending in the markets and they look nice on the plate too. So you can do that now, that is plant potatoes. The question is, can you get seed? If you don't already have it in the cooler, probably not. You could try, and I'm shuddering as I hear myself about to say this. I'm going to say it anyhow. You could try to buy, not from the supermarkets. They spray them with a sprout retardant so they won't grow, so they have a longer shelf life. You could try New Leaf, Food Bin, etc., and get organic seed potatoes and plant them. Now you are taking a risk, because even though a seed potato might look perfectly clean, it could be, as it were, lousy with Phytophthora infestans, late blight, which is going to cause crop failure, total crop failure. I love the Latin. Phytophthora means plant destroyer in Latin, and infestans, well, I'll leave that to you to decipher, but it ain't good. So yeah, you can, but getting seeds. So maybe for next year, order some to plant, and probably March into April are the months to plant potatoes in the spring, and then keep some in the cooler. That would be your vegetable crisper in the fridge, and plant them out in July and August, have them in the fall. This guy, Chris Hollingsworth, he made a pretty good living at farmer's market for Thanksgiving and Christmas potatoes, fresh new potatoes. Okay.
Question from Delise on starting directly seeded crops like carrots and lettuce during an Indian summer heat spell.
Yeah, let's take lettuce, let's take spinach, let's take celery, let's go over to the flower world and take larkspurs and nigella. These are all things that come from the Mediterranean rim. So it still is part of their DNA. They have a chemical inhibition to germinate when soil temperatures are warm. Okay, so you're a wild progenitor lettuce living on the shores of the Aegean Sea. It's your seed in the ground. It's fall, it rains, it's cool. You sprout, you grow vegetatively through the winter. And then as the days get longer and it gets drier in the spring, you send up a stalk, you flower, you drop your seed on the ground. Makes no sense, being a succulent annual like lettuce, to germinate then at the onset of the hot, dry summer. So they have developed a chemical inhibition. So warm temperatures will retard germination on celery, larkspurs, delphiniums, lettuce, spinach. You can trick them a little bit. Put them in the fridge for about 72 hours and you get them to germinate. So I don't recommend direct seeding lettuce unless you want to do cutting lettuce. It's slow, it's tedious, you have to thin. If you don't thin lettuce adequately, you won't get a good head. So I do transplants. But yeah, depending on where you live, if you live on the coast, this is where the coast is a boon. It doesn't matter, it doesn't get that hot. If you live up on Bonnie Doon, wait a bit. What was the other, lettuce, and what was the other one?
Carrots.
Carrots. Carrots can germinate with warm soil temperatures. They need 60 to 80 something degree soil temperatures. They're great. And in fact, I don't know why we grow summer carrots. The warm soil temps in the summer gives them they develop terpenes, and they have a kind of an off taste by and large. And the best and the sweetest, as I said previously, are carrots sown in August, maturing in October, November. Carrots sown in September, maturing 60, 70, 80 days later, like that. But I mean, look at the weather, the 3 to 5 day forecast, and stay away from heat waves. Not like we've had any lately.
Is it true that the soil you grow tomatoes in should not be used for tomatoes again for 3 seasons?
By the book, yep. Okay, by the book. Crop rotation. Crop rotation has a couple origins. One is to prevent disease cycles. There are soil-borne diseases, so if you grow the same crop in the same ground, you have a likelihood of transferring soil-borne disease, not airborne, soil-borne diseases from one generation, say, of tomatoes to the next generation. But the other is a nutrient draw. If you grow tomatoes and tomatoes and tomatoes in the same ground, you're pulling an enormous amount of the same nutrients out. So mixing up, rotating your crops is recommended. And it can be as easy as work your soil, fertilize with compost, sow a heavy feeder. Next crop, be a moderate or light feeder, like that. And you can run into trouble with disease with potatoes and tomatoes. I would be the most strict about and give it that 3-year rotation. And in a small garden, that's difficult.
I like where this question is headed, and I might invite myself over once you answer it. Where can I find a cocktail tree, and do they do well in this climate? Meyer lemon, key lime.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. A cocktail tree. When I think cocktail tree, it's usually stone fruits. You're referencing citrus?
As Meyer lemon and key lime are the two that are offered.
Well, that tandem is going to quickly devolve to the Meyer lemon, which is one tough son of a gun. True limes, Mexican lime, bartender lime, key lime, as you wish, is not a happy camper in Santa Cruz. Temperatures below 55 degrees, true limes will actually go dormant. We get temperatures in the mid 50s, even in the summer in the night. And I've grown them from time to time, and then I just put them out of their misery. Now you can grow a sweet lime. It's called a beer slime here. And that's, I think, the most superior, it's more superior, it's better than either a lemon or a lime in terms of its fragrance, its oils and all that. So I wouldn't buy that multi-grafted Meyer lemon lime, because you're going to just end up with a Meyer lemon. It's cheaper just to buy a Meyer lemon. I also have to add that my wife Stephanie and I are pretty much the only people on the planet who actually don't like Meyer lemons. I don't know why, but we don't. But they're marvelous. They are almost ever cropping. They are so cold hardy. They're hardy down to single digits. They're along with the cum crop, which unfortunately doesn't fruit in Santa Cruz, it's not warm enough, are the two most cold hardy of citrus. Good luck with them. But when you say true cocktail tree, what's done, and which is it's pretty cool, is they have multi-graft stone fruits. One limb is a plum, one is a peach, one is a cherry, and on, like 3 and 4 grafts on a tree. So if people have small yards, you get a multitude of fruits from one tree, and they're a pretty good deal. When you're buying any type of multi-graft tree, look at it. And make sure that each limb is a separate variety. Make sure they're of approximate equal vigor. Because if you have a few strong ones and a few weak ones, it's kind of like big pig, little pig at the trough, feeding trough. The big pigs push the little pigs out of the way, and basically the weaker ones die off, the limbs, that is, in this instance. So pick one that's got pretty even vigor in the branches, and they're good. And the same thing with you can get multi-graft apples, multi-graft plums, multi-graft pears, and I personally hate them, but they're a good deal for people with limited space.
Well, those are the questions that came in, and if I can chime in for 1 sec on your seed companies, I'd also want to throw in Kitazawa seeds if you have any.
Oh yeah, George's Kitazawa over in San Jose is about 100 years. They're just top, just exquisite Asian greens. And let me just say, grow Asian greens. whether you grow them in a salad mix configuration or a full size for sauteing and steaming. They are a nutritional bonanza. They're beautiful. There's a whole range from mild to slightly piquant to knock your socks off spicy. They do well, particularly well in the fall, winter into the spring. They can be a little bit problematic as they bolt prematurely, get a little bitter in the heat of summer. But Kitasawa Seed Company, it's kind of like new school, old school. They've got some way throwback old varieties, and they've got some of the latest modern, highly bred varieties. And while we're talking about Asian greens, let me just spend a minute on Napa cabbage, or Longbach, elongate, barrel-shaped Asian cabbages. They're great, similar to the Eurobrascas. Now's the time to transplant. You can do successive waves through the beginning of October, and in about 55, 60 plus days, you'll have a nice Napa cabbage. And there are small ones. One from Renee is called Little Jade, and one from Johnny is called Minuet. And there are bigger ones. There's one from Johnny's that's red to boot and about 5 pounds called Red Dragon. Both Rubicon and Bilko are 3 to 5 pounders, but they give you a lot of food stuff in a very short period of time.
Those are all the live questions. I don't know if you wanted to.
I got some dead ones here. I can resurrect them. There were a number of questions about, how shall I put it, varmints. So let's wade into that. How do I protect my garden beds from birds? Well, let me just start off and say, not all birds are bad birds. In fact, most birds are either neutral or beneficial. Let's talk about the beneficials. Perching songbirds that are insectivorous, warblers, vireos, bush tits, things of that, chickadees, things of that nature, are excellent scavengers of soft-bodied insects that are detrimental in your garden. One of my favorite sites, come out early in the March morning, early as it's getting light, and walking around the garden and looking at the still dormant fruit trees. And there'll be an undulating flock of bush tips, 20 or 30 of these really cool little birds, sharp beaks, feed insects, just flock to the branches of apple or pear. And in every little nook and cranny, they're eating aphid eggs. So birds can be good. Birds that are bad, okay. Well, also, I'm going to get to rodents in a minute. And voles are on the upswing in this area. Yikes. The good news is they have these on-off cycles. The bad news is we're in an on cycle. But it's been 8 or 10 years since I've seen any voles. But about 8 or 10 years ago, we had problems with voles, big time. We couldn't grow leaf crops. And then one winter, fall winter, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 red-shouldered hawks moved in. And I would see them scarfing 3, 4, 5 a day, and it pretty much wiped out the population. You can also make friends with an owl. They are pesky voles and difficult to trap. They make these little superficial runs, about 1 foot, 2 feet long, like that. And they are diurnal and nocturnal, and they move with the speed of the U.S. Olympic sprint team. And they'll eat a whole head of radicchio in a night. And some of you will say, well, good, I'm glad they did. But I like radicchio. I read, and they're hard to trap. What works with voles in trapping is a cute little have-a-heart trap. They go for that, live traps. And then you dispose of them as you see fit. I won't go into details on that one. The other thing is I read in a fruit tree trade mag about 10, 15 years ago, secondary poisoning of raptors, owls, and such is a huge problem in vineyards and orchards. They use rodenticides that are just lethal. And this guy from Washington State University came up with an organic, non-toxic rodenticide. And it's pretty simple. 2 parts oat flakes. It's one case where I won't buy organic. It's cheaper to buy conventional. And 1 part plaster of Paris. Just mix it together, dry, and put it in something. You can get those small pie tins and put a dowel through, so it's got covering up above, just enough of an opening for a vole to run in. Or you can just put it in a paper sack. And it basically constipates them to death. Should a raptor, an owl, a cat, or somebody else eat it, it doesn't do any secondary harm to them. And it can be quite effective. Although I had a few intelligent voles, and they would actually take the time to pick through and just eat the oats and leave it. I come out and all there is plaster of Paris. So I just spritzed it a little and got them to adhere, and that worked quite well. What was the other part of birds. So the main bird culprits, not throughout the year, but through a good part of throughout the year would be the little junco, cute, but voracious seed and seedling eater, and sparrows, but not so much now, but late winter, fall into early spring. They can be devastating. One year at the farm, they took down 18-inch tall bell beans and skeletalized them. So bird netting, and you can make hoops out of either a light gauge PVC or electrical conduit, and batten it down at the edges. With bird netting, it's got to be 100%. 99.5 just won't do. They can't get in. So you can use these, down at the garden centers, you can get these U-shaped metal irrigation staples to hold T-tape and such down, and just put one in about every 3 feet or so. Make sure it's cinched down and they can't get in. So gophers. Dial 1-800 Whitman, or he's Gophers Limited is the business. He'll come out and trap for you. Anything. He'll trap anything for you. And he'll also teach you how to trap if that's your desire. If you're trapping, get a cinch trap. They're the most effective, like that. And bunnies are bunnies are booming. Bunnies are vertically challenged, so you just need a short fence around the area. You can use a cheap chicken wire, 2-inch chicken wire, or you can use that, as you see in construction sites, that black silt netting. And it works pretty, not pretty, but it works good. The other thing is habitat. It's just clear back brush. Bunnies don't like being exposed. We're having a terrible problem right now because we're we're lost in the weeds at the upper garden, Chadwick Garden, because of limited personnel, talented, but limited personnel. Yeah, okay, so there's some critter stuff. We talked about garlic. Let's talk about an alternative to fall vegetable crops. Now, let's talk about what should be a standard part of your gardening regimen year in and year out. And 2 excellent times to do this is make compost, spring and fall. Spring is easy because we have such an abundance of lush vegetation from weeds and cover crops. Skim, make compost. Fall is easy when you do a general garden cleanup. If you can get some straw or get some leaves, that kind of balances the more high nitrogen greens that you might be taking out of your garden, or certainly your cover crops will be nitrogenous. And if you can get some manure, that ups the ante too. If you're just doing a home, what's a home gardener's dilemma? A whole lot of kitchen slop, not much else. So what I would do is you can do it freestanding or in a bin. I think Ecology Action still offers composting bins at a discounted rate. What I would put by my compost bin to supplement when I come out with my gooey goppy sloppy greens is leaves or straw, a carbon source, and dry to offset the wet of the sloppy kitchen greens. And if I can get some manure, I'll just have a stash there. One place to go, you can just get it for free. You can get a bucket, you can get a truckload, is Coast Stables, just up a mile out of town on Highway 1. They're happy for you to take it. And in fact, it's a pollutant. They are right there on the benchlands, and copious amounts of manure that can leach down into the water table and into the marine sanctuary here. Not good, so help them out. Okay, let me check out a lot of the questions were about what winter vegetables thrive and such. But let's talk cover crops a little bit here. When I give these talks in person, it's easier. I usually say, okay, everybody raise your right hand. Come on, I'm looking. Raise your right hand. You can raise your left hand, it's okay. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear, heck, I don't care if you joyously swear, that going forward, is there any other way to go? I will always grow cover crops. Cover crops are such, you can put your hands down. I need pictures to verify. Cover crops are such a boon. It's basically through fueling your garden soil system with organic matter from compost and cover crops. That's the fuel that drives the engine of growth. And cover crops are easy and quick. You can just simply scatter sow them, broadcast sow them in the fall, rake them in with a bow rake, a metal bow rake like that, mulch over a little with leaves or straw. In the orchard, we use wood chips, but I wouldn't do that in the vegetable garden. They grow. When they get anywhere from hip to chest high, we drop and chop. We come with a machete and we chop them down, drop them on the ground, chop them up a little. In the vegetable beds, we turn them into the soil to decompose as a green manure. In the tree crops, we simply leave them on the ground and put more wood chip mulch over them. And in that way, you can have your tree system move more towards a no-till system once you've got it established. The effect on the soil is palpable, manifest. It improves the organic matter. For every 1% organic matter increase in your soil, you're probably getting 15, 20% more nutrient availability. The cover crops are also called trap crops. They forage for nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, etc. Take it up in their above ground parts, hold it, keep them from leaching. And then when you turn them into the soil very quickly, the soil microbial community munches them, eats them. That's actually a misnomer. Soil microbes don't have mouth parts. They do it enzymatically. They slime, sort of like the old Ghostbusters, you know. But they rot down that green material and put it into a form that's very rapidly, and by rapidly I mean within 10 days, 2 weeks, in an available form for your follow crops or your spring vegetables. So grow cover crops. In general, if you wanted to sneak in now before a mid-late fall flower crop, you could scatter sow buckwheat. In 30, 40 days, it matures. You turn it in about 5, 7 days, it'll decompose. It's a wimpy little plant that has a huge effect on the physical properties of the soil. Also is a good concentrator of phosphorus, making it available to the fall crop. But generally in the fall in Santa Cruz, we use what's known in the trade as BVOP, a mix of bell beans, vetch, oats, and peas. And this is a great combination for biomass. The two legumes in it, bell beans, which is a smaller seeded fava, and cheaper too, and vetch, fix nitrogen. You get free nitrogen. Cover crops cycle nutrients, that is, they keep nutrients that are already in the soil from leaching. But legumes add nitrogen. They through an association between a genus of bacteria, genus Rhizobium, and legume roots. The legume will form a little nodule on the root. The bacteria will live in that, and the bacteria convert the air that's in the soil. They take the nitrogen and make it into a form that's assimilatable by plants. So you get free nitrogen. Free stuff is good. And I might add, nitrogen is the nutrient needed in the largest amounts by plants. Nitrogen is also the most expensive nutrient. Nitrogen is also the most difficult to manage nutrient. It can leach down with rains, it can volatilize up if left on the surface. But by fixing it via its biological nitrogen fixation via legumes and soil bacteria, you could maybe even get all the nitrogen you need for any given veg crop without any additional fertilizer or compost. So, well, unless there are more questions, you're probably getting tired of this.
A question about cover crop in raised beds. Would it be the same deal?
Same deal. You don't have to bend over. It's great. I guess the only thing different in a raised bed is, and let me say, if you're struggling, someone sent in a question saying that they fertilized the compost and they grew the vegetables, it didn't do well, it's a raised bed, what should I do? sow cover crops, grow them as a green manure, turn them in. Again, as I said, the immediate effect from fall to spring is just fantastic. Okay, I'm going to leave you with a short poem. A fellow named William Stafford, who was one of my favorite poets going way back, and then about 10 years ago, his grandson, Ian Wilson, was an apprentice, and how cool was that? And his poems often seem deceptively simple. They often contain both a distinctive and more complex vision upon closer examination. So along the lines of affirmation, a poem entitled Yes. It could happen anytime. Tornado, earthquake, Armageddon. It could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, you know. That is why we wake and look out. No guarantees in this life, but some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening. Good evening.
All right, thank you all. We'll be following up with a recording. He's out, a recording of the event, and also a list of links for the varieties, tools, fertilizer brands, anything that can be linked, we'll do our best to link to, so you all can find that easily. So thanks for joining us, and have a great evening.
Thank you.